Hello and welcome to Daedalus transmission 1.02.
In today's transmission, we're going to be continuing from where we left off last time, and we're going to be addressing and talking about mental health as well as 40k. So we're going to be continuing with the chat today, and we're going to be looking at depression. But as well as that, we're going to look at continuing the Ultramarines Army build we were looking at in our last transmission, and we're going to be continuing with our kit bash of our Lord Executioner model, and we're going to be looking at how the army's starting to come along. Okay. Also, as I said, we're going to be chatting about depression. Now, depression in the UK, 1 in 4 people in the UK suffer from depression. Okay, and in the US, the statistics are 16.2 million adults in the US. Okay, suffer from depression. The most common demographic across the board of people presenting are 18 to 25-year-olds. Okay, so we're going to be doing a little bit of a chat about that today. I know a lot of you guys out there also struggle with your mental health, as do I.
Last time we built this guy. Now, as we said before, he's looking pretty cool. So that is the lieutenant, all done, put together and ready to paint. So what I've done since then is I've put together some of the rest of the army. Now, as we said, we're going to go for a battalion size detachment, which has got 2 headquarters and 3 troops choices. So I'll give you an example of what the troops choices are going to look like. Here's some I've already put together and painted. Now, we already said we're going for 8th Company of the Ultramarines. So I've made a start on these guys, and all of these are the easy to build assault intercessors. Now the sergeant here, almost complete to a good tabletop standard. There we go. So this is a guy who we've armed with a plasma pistol. Now if you remember when we looked at the army list, we've got 1 squad of 5 where the sergeant's got a plasma pistol, and then we've got 2 other squads where one with the sergeant with a power fist and one with the sergeant with a power sword. Now we're going to look at the build for these guys a little bit in a little bit more depth, okay, as we go along. Reason for this is because even though these other models here are, as they come out of the packet, this is one of my favourites here, the guy throwing the grenade. Now also I've just got to paint the pistol grip there on his heavy bolt pistol, but this is one of my favourites because of the grenade throwing arm. Now we're going to trim a load of these down, and even if you're not going to use these grenade throwing arms, clipping the hands off are also really good for just keeping in your bits box for other things. Now what I've done also is I've prepped the rest of the unit. So again, I've taken the easy build assault intercessors, there we go, and I've prepped them all. I've put the torsos and legs together, okay, for the rest of our squad, for the rest of our 2 squads. Now, as I said, we're going to be coming back to those guys later. The bits for the captain. Now we're looking at the captain build today. So I've separated all the bits out into a plastic bag so we don't lose them. And I've had a scour for my bits box. Now, as we said, the captain for this one is going to be the Lord Executioner. So what we're going to want here is something which looks a little bit better. So he's got a relic shield. So what I've got here for the relic shield is I've got a custode. Oops, just drop that there. So I've got a custode shield, which has already got a hand in the back, a little bit large. I've already test fitted that onto something previously. But however, it's not going to make much difference, especially in this scale. So what I've got there is Ultramarine hand there, similar to what we did with the lieutenant. We're going to trim this chainsaw down, and we're going to sort of fit that arm into the back there with a little bit of a fit in there to make the shield. Again, checking which shields we've got. Test fitting these, as I said, we're going to use one of these really nice easy build which we're going to trim down. Now the reason why I want to use one of these is because a lot of character models have got really standard poses where they're very still. Now I want this guy to be looking like the lieutenant, where he's running forward and there's a lot of action in that pose there. So I want to do the same with the captain. So as you can see, we're going to be using that grenade arm there. So we're going to very carefully slice off that hand. I'm going to replace it with this. Now this hand I believe comes from the Vanguard Veterans box set. So that's going to replace there. You can see that's going to replace there, which means that we're going to get a really nice sort of telegraphed swing of that two-headed axe. And then by the time that's braced in behind that shield, that's going to give us a really a lot of movement and a really quite an action pose with that model. And we'll have a look at that as we go along. Other bits I'm going to add. I was tinkering with one of these. This is the front of a torso from a Black Templar. Now we may trim this down and see if we can get this torso front to fit in there, which will probably match against, look very similar to the front of the torso chest we had on the old Lord Executioner model. So we'll have a trim with that, see if we can fit that down. I've got a backpack here, which is from the Indomitus set. It's from the Lieutenant in the Indomitus set, which you also get these with the Blade Guard and the Captain as well. It's got the Iron Halo, which is part of the war gear on the Captain. Interestingly, let's fit this onto here. Really good bit of tool you can use is a bent paper clip stuck in a cork. Now the reason why it's really handy is if you're doing some work on here. So this head you can see there, again like we used parts previously from the Lieutenant Calcius model from the Conquest game, I've got a few of these heads sitting around in my bits box. Now they look really nice and appropriate for a captain, as they've got those sort of laurels around the crown there. Now I've got a couple of different heads I may tinker around with him. Now, as we said with the Lieutenant, where we've got the crest on his helmet running front to back, and I wanted it to sit out slightly by using a transverse crest, which I've got here, which I believe this one came from the Mark IV Horus Heresy Space Marine kit. And we're going to trim this down. Oops, there we go. And we're going to see if we can get that to fit the top of the helmet in some way. If it does look a bit too much, I may go another way with it, because I've also got this really cool head here, which I quite like these. I've used a few of these in the past with the scars on them for a veteran's head. May look pretty good for the captain actually. So we'll see how it goes. We'll mock it up, see how it goes. And again, just got all the usual paraphernalia there, and I'm going to replace the assault shoulder pad on this side. So as you can see, you've got the assault shoulder pad there. These can be trimmed down really easily, and I'm going to replace this with something a bit more, something a bit more befitting the captain's model. Let's make him stand out a bit. I think that against the power shield, the relic storm shield, is going to look really good. Now, just going back, so as we said before, these guys, I've got a little bit of gold on there. So what I've done is I've retained gold just on the chest eagle, and the rest of it is grey and blue. Okay, again, the Indomitus and the fittings around the chainsword are in gold, but the rest of it, and I think that is actually a really good tabletop standard there. What we're going to be doing into is later on is we're going to be going into how we achieve this in a very quick and easy way of making this up. So we're now going to be looking at the first part of the build. Right, so I've marked up here. I'm going to chop straight across the top of the torso. So, excuse fingers, I'll cut straight across the top of the torso. I'm going to leave plenty of spare plastic there so I can trim to one side. I'm also going to take off this arm and the hand. We're going to be sticking the arm back on again. When the hand comes off, this axe will be fitted to where that hand was, and where the main part of the upper torso was. Okay, I'm going to be fitting this in. Now, across the top there, we haven't got the large gorget piece on, but what we do have is this little piece of the armour here will actually marry up with the back end of the armour. Okay, so we're going to have to trim out these two parts there. This is going to marry up. We're going to use a little bit of filler, but that will actually marry up nicely there. Okay, and you'll see where the abdominal plates of the other armour on the original piece of armour will then fill in that gap there, and we'll just trim that down with a knife, tidy it up again. But this will really make this model stand out differently from the rest. Okay, and as you can see down there, by the time I get this in, this piece down the bottom here where these pipes come through will actually marry up with these pieces on the backpack, which will give us a really good fit. Whilst about that, the knee pad with this model here as a knee pad. Okay, I'm going to file off the start of that knee pad, and we're going to try fixing a skull or another emblem to there. Just a little something different which is going to stand out and make this guy look a bit more special. Now, also, as we know, he comes with 32mm base, okay, with these nice little hex pegs in. Okay, it'll fit on that, but I want him to stand out a bit more. Now, we used this base for the lieutenant, but I want to do something different with the kit bash for this. So, using the larger base, we're going to trim down this base. We're going to fit it in there. We're going to stick all sorts of good stuff over around here, build up a little bit of a diorama on his base to make it look a little bit more special. Okay, and then by the time we come to paint it, and we'll put some texture paint and everything else on there with some skulls, bits and pieces, and that's going to look really good. Let's have a look at this now then. So what we've done now is, let me just remove that head. As you can see, we've trimmed this down. This looks quite rough in here at the moment. So I've glued it on its place, so everything's been held. Now, once the glue is cured, we're going to file it down, do the last little bits of trim around there, and then we're going to smooth in some green stuff just to fill the joints in, and then just file it and then sand it down a little bit, just smooth it all off to make those lines sort of run into each other. Okay, then as you can see here, we've done the kit bash onto the shoulder pad. There we go. So onto the arm. Chainsaw's been removed, and the hand from the custode looks actually quite good, and that's going to be hidden behind the shield. So as you can see, that's going to be a really nice action pose there, again swinging the sword. Now, at the moment, I'm wondering whether to go ahead as planned with the helmet with the laurel wreath on it. There we go, the laurel wreath, or whether should match this bare head up. Now this one looks very similar to the original head, which is on the Lord Executioner from the old Firstborn Marine captain. So that's where we go at the moment. Also, you can see here that at the bottom here, I've trimmed down that knee pad and fitted a skull to it. So we've fitted that skull in there, which just adds a nice little bit more detail. Again, we can trim that down again and just tidy that up a little bit. Now, another little trick I like to use is sprue. So it's just a piece of sprue. and then using your side cutters, clipping the sprue at different angles. Trying to catch it there with my finger, please, just so that it doesn't fly across the room. As you see here, we have all of these little bits, okay, which are like very much like little rocks and stuff, and those bits we're going to use to fill gaps when we cut the base. So placing the base on there, what we're going to do next is we're going to cut very carefully. Okay, guys, remember, whenever you're using a scalpel, okay, be very careful with use of it. So just going to use it to point with, we're going to cut around the edges here, okay, and around there to get rid of some of this beveled edge of the smaller base. We're going to glue this down onto the larger base, and then we're going to fill a lot of these gaps in with bits of clipped sprue. We're going to put a few skulls and a few other items on the base, and then what we'll do then is we're going to coat that with a bit of texture paint, and that will all come together when we finally do the painting of the model as well. Again, as you can see at the top here, we've got a bit of a gap here, and that's all going to be tidied up with some green stuff later on.
So while we're waiting for that to dry, okay, and then I get a little play around with some green stuff. Okay, so let's have a little chat about depression then. So why do we experience depression? Now, depression can really come into four main sort of areas when we look at ourselves. Okay, we can look at the first one, which is our thinking styles. Okay, then we have life events, biological factors, and behavioural factors. Now, when we look at thinking styles, this is really subjective for us. Okay, so how we think, okay, and how we look inwardly on ourselves. Okay, so we can be self-critical. We really have a lot of low self-worth. Or we could, on the other side, we can have high levels of perfectionism, and then we can get really upset. And if we don't achieve those sort of levels. Now, sometimes you see it with painting and with modelling when you start out. So some people may see, the Games Workshop heavy metal team, and you'll paint your first model and it doesn't look like it does in the back of the White Wolf magazine, or but you need to understand that it's going to take you time to get there. Okay, but however, sometimes in life we don't achieve those goals. So, and this is all to do with our thinking styles, which we sometimes put a lot of undue pressure on ourselves. Okay, also high levels of anxiety. Okay, so anxiety and depression are both different mental health issues. However, they can be linked. So if you suffer from high levels of anxiety, okay, it can lead to depression. So they sort of tend to go hand in hand. When we look at life events, okay, so these are things external which have sort of been sort of thrust upon us. Okay, it could be long-term unemployment. Okay, we could be out of work for a long time, which is going to bring you down. Okay, we could come from an abusive or uncaring relationships. We can come from a broken family, or those sort of other relationships we've been in, which can then affect us. Okay, isolation, loneliness. Now that's a big one at the moment, isn't it? Now we talk about coronavirus, and we've been in lockdown and all the issues we've had at the moment. So those that sort of isolation and loneliness can actually lead to depression. And then we spoke about anxiety earlier, but then another external anxiety is one of those things we put on ourselves. Okay, prolonged stress. So when we look at stress from external factors, so work stress, family stress, even looking at social media these days. I'm starting to close myself off from social media. I'm just sitting there painting my toys, because sometimes looking at other stresses at how they're sort of shot in our faces across social media can cause depression. And sometimes we do need to take a bit of a break from that. Okay, the third one we spoke about was biological factors. Now, biological factors are other things which we can't really do much about. Okay, so for instance, we may have a genetic risk. Okay, we may be predisposed to depression via our family history. and sometimes if there's a history of depression in the family, you could be more susceptible. Also, we talk about neurotransmitters, so past experiences. So past experiences, and our brains make those connections. Okay, so it can come from things like an illness such as PTSD. Okay, where the brain has made connections. Okay, and those connections in the brain actually cause depression, and then hormonal factors as well. So chemical and biological imbalances within the body, which can cause depression. Now, those types with the hormonal factors, sometimes that's what they tend to use medication for to keep those those sort of chemicals in your body in balance. Okay. Now, the last one we talked about was behavioural factors. Okay, this is how we behave. Okay, we can become withdrawn. And we spoke about isolation as a life event. If we become withdrawn, we're going to isolate ourselves further. Okay, and another one, limited physical activity. So again, if you're an outdoors type person, you're somebody who's normally very active and out, and you're used to your body with physical exercise producing those endorphins. Okay, that endorphin rush. Now you're no longer getting that. Okay, so that can come with and then cause depression because you're not being able to get it. Again, with long-term injuries. Now myself, I was injured, and I used to go from play. I used to play rugby. I used to run cross country. I used to be quite active. Now I'm left in chronic pain, and the limited physical activity does bring me down. So, and again, that will then turn around and then affect your thinking styles again. So they're the four sort of main factors we look at as to why we experience depression.
Now, back to this guy again now. So, I had a bit of a discussion about depression, about what is depression. And before we go any further on that, I'm just going to have a quick look here. So what we've done here now is we've come along, we've used some green stuff, we've filled in all those gaps. Okay, that'll just need a bit of smoothing down again once it's dry, and we've finished putting the model together. Now, looking into the base, you can see what we've done here is, as I said before, we'd cut the 32mm base down around there, and then filled it in with bits of sprue and offcuts into there. Added an orc skull, a few other bits. Now, once we get the texture paint on there, and then a few clumps of grass and stuff, when we got to the painting, that's going to really sort of pop out. Now, I've gone for the So I've gone for the head there with the transverse crest. Okay, that's just the angle there, and I've also, on our last transmission when we spoke about those Ultimas that you get on the side of drop pods, and you get them with land speeders and stuff. There we go. We've used that there, attached that, and fitted that into the bottom of the shield there. So I think actually this new chest piece looks actually really quite nice on there, and I think the proof's going to be in the painting. Again, added a few purity seals on there, ultramarine purity seals, the new pauldron, and a few other bits like there on the back, so it sort of enhances the movement of the model there. Now let's have a look at this guy, see if we can have a look at him next to the lieutenant we did. So there we go. So the lieutenant and the captain both, swap them around this way, both sort of complement each other. And again, as I said, we're going to be coming back and we'll look at the paint scheme we're going to use for these. So we'll do a little bit of a painting tutorial on these, see how it goes.
Place the models down for a second. we've already spoken about the factors affecting depression. So what I'd just like to do now is talk about something called depression cyclone. Now, cyclones, as we know, whirlwinds and sort of a spiral, and sometimes we can get into that sort of spiral of depression. So that's what we're going to sort of chat through at the moment. So depression, we spoke about those factors, but we have thoughts, feelings and behaviours. Now, how we think affects how we feel, and how we feel affects how we behave. And then the impacts of those behaviours can then affect our thoughts again. So we get into this sort of spiral where we can go downhill really quickly. Now, when we look at our thoughts, so we can think that, you've messed up, or when we spoke before, we said about being self-critical. Now, you can be really self-critical, and those self-critical thoughts, and we said before, they're very subjective. That's how you feel inside. So you feel like there's no point, or nobody likes you, or so you have these sort of thoughts about yourself, and they in turn affect your feelings. Okay, because you're overthinking things, you're going to get tired. You're going to feel you can't motivate yourself, and you can feel that you're not interested in things. And when you start to feel that way, that'll in turn affect your behaviours. So you cut yourself off. We spoke about isolation before. So you sort of isolate yourself. You get into that sort of funk. We sort of fall into that sort of funk where we can't motivate ourselves to do anything. Now, in the work environment, that can also really badly affect productivity. So we're now tired, so there's feelings, we're tired, we're not motivated, we're not interested, so we're going to stay at home. Our behaviours are going to start to lag, but in turn, these behaviours are then going to affect our thoughts, because thinking, do the people I work with, they sort of, can they sense that I'm not behaving properly? Am I going to get sacked? And those are really negative thoughts. So your behaviours then affect those thoughts you're having and making them even worse. And in turn, those thoughts are going to bring you even further down. You're going to feel more tired. You're going to get anxiety. Your motivation's going to decrease even more. And that in turn is going to affect your behaviours. Now, as I said, it's a really, really bad spiral to get into. Now, there are ways we can sort of look at these, and again, over the next few episodes, we're going to probably look at a few cognitive behavioural therapy techniques and stuff we can look at to get there. Now, there are a few things we can do. There's a few apps out there which can help. Now, remember, there are many things you can do, and one of the most important things is just remember you are not alone out there. There are a lot of people out there who are also suffering and dealing with depression and other mental health illnesses on a daily basis. So what we've got to remember is everyone experiences depression and low mood differently. Therefore, people may have different recovery pathways. As we keep on saying, it's subjective. Every person is an individual, and no two people have exactly the same case. And that means that you're all going to need your own recovery and things to help you deal with it yourself. For me, one of the things I do is I paint, I go out, I walk the dog, I spend time with my family. Okay, you have to find what works best for you. Now, obviously, if you've enjoyed this, or you found this helpful, please put any comments, please subscribe to this page, put any comments in the bottom there about how you feel this go, if there's any changes you'd like me to make to these transmissions, and also before we go, if just to remind you, okay, this is mainly for the people in the UK, but if you or someone you know are experiencing a crisis and are in need of urgent mental health support, please call 111 or visit www.111.nhs.uk, and speak to the NHS mental health triage service. Okay, also the Samaritans offer emotional support 24 hours a day, 365 days a year through the free UK telephone number, which is 116-123. That's 116-123. If you're someone you know are at immediate risk of harming themselves or others, then please ring 999. Okay. End transmission.